And also get us out live on Facebook. Let's see if that works.
It's like we're rushed. I'll come sit on this. This whole area is the J. Nelson Institute. Center for Women Entrepreneurs. Center for Women.
I guess I'm gonna put that over there and try not to look like I'm reading my notes.
Center for Student Leadership.
Reading my notes.
No, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, and okay, so the next one we already have is actually change services. After I would like to be entrepreneur.
Okay, we are everybody can hear us okay? Perfect, awesome.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Tracy Irby and I'm the director at TWU, Center for Women Entrepreneurs. We're so happy to have this special event today and glad all of you can make it. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are part of the J. Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership. The Center for Women Entrepreneurs was funded in 2015 by the state legislature just to help promote women entrepreneurs anywhere in the state of Texas. And we do that through small business advising, network and training events. We also have nice events like we're doing today, and we do funding and research into women entrepreneurs. I'll go ahead and get us started. Today we're excited to have two very special guests, Dr. Genevieve Lind. Dr. Genevieve Lind is the SBIR Program Manager at the National NOAA. It's the National
Oceanic.
Oceanic, I don't know why that word is so hard to say, and Atmospheric Administration. So from now on, it'll be NOAA. And she brings years of experience in the SBIR, STTR, and technology development space at the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, NINDS, National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and Small Business Administration. Having started her federal career as an AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow. Prior to her fellowship, she worked as an AmeriCorps VISTA, Volunteer in Service to America, at Blackstone LaunchPad at the University of Montana, a university-based innovation and entrepreneurship center. She holds a Ph.D. in neuroscience from the University of Montana. And we also have with her Dr. Suzi Webster. Suzi is the Stakeholder Engagement and Communication Specialist at the NOAA Technology Partnership Office. She is passionate about supporting researchers and innovators who create solutions for some of society's most pressing challenges. Suzi began her career at NOAA as a NOAA Marine Policy Fellow. Prior to her fellowship, she worked on a team of science communication professionals at the Integration and Application Network and served as a research assistant at the Marine Biological Laboratory Ecosystem Center. She holds a PhD in marine environmental sciences from the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. Ladies, it is great to meet both of you and have you here today.
And it's fantastic to be here, and I don't know where the slides are. Okay.
Now you can just do, you want presenter view or start from the beginning?
Let's try presenter view, see if that works. Yep.
Can everybody see the screen okay? Okay.
Thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. Here. Nope, that's the end of the slideshow. The preview of everything we're gonna talk about. Because I don't know how to, okay, here we go. Thank you for your patience. All right, thanks everybody. Genevieve Lind again, we are really excited to be here today. And I am joined by Suzi Webster. Other people.
Sorry, we have a hybrid event, so we're trying to
Oh,
make it
you're
look
right.
good for
Yep.
the people in the room and the
Yep.
people online. So bear with us for just a second while we get our desktop looking good.
Thanks, Suzi.
One sec, one sec, one sec. All right, thank you for the patience.
Thanks, Suzi. So in this presentation today, I'm going to start with a high-level overview of the SBIR and STTR programs, and then I'll get into the details of the NOAA SBIR program. I want to point out and make sure that everyone is aware that the things that I'm talking about in the beginning don't all necessarily apply to the NOAA SBIR program, but I do want to give a broad perspective of SBIR and STTR in case people are interested in being involved in the program with different agencies. So SBIR and STTR, the Small Business Innovation Research and the Small Business Technology Transfer Programs, are also known as America's Seed Fund. And they are one of the largest sources of early stage capital for technology commercialization in the United States. These programs allow US-owned and operated small businesses to engage in federally supported research and development that has the potential for commercialization. The SBIR and the STTR programs are congressionally mandated, and that mandate states that any federal agency that has a research and development budget that's over $100 million has to set aside 3.2% of their budget for small businesses to engage in federal research and development with potential for commercialization. Additionally, any federal agency that has an extramural research and development budget over $1 billion is required to set aside an additional 0.45% for small businesses to engage in collaboration with research institutions to conduct research and development. The goals of the SBIR program, as mandated by Congress, are to first meet federal research and development needs. Second, to increase private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding. Third, to stimulate technological innovation. And finally, to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by women and socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, which is one of the reasons that we're here today. Finally, the STTR program has a specific additional goal to foster technology transfer through cooperative research and development between small businesses and research institutions, for example, academic institutions. As I mentioned before, there's more than one federal agency that participate in the SBIR and the STTR programs. There are 11 federal agencies with SBIR programs, and then 5 additional programs who have STTR programs, and those are shown in darker blue on the slide. In total, there's about $3.2 billion of SBIR funding and $450 million in STTR funding through over 5,000 new awards every year. The Small Business Administration acts as a coordinating agency, but they don't provide any awards themselves. So maybe now you're wondering, how do I get my hand on some of that almost $4 billion worth of funding? What is a small business? And there are specific requirements for eligibility for the program. So a company must be a for-profit, US owned and operated, and employ under 500 people. The work that you're proposing to do in your application has to be done in the United States. And the focus should be on performing research and development. So it's not for purchasing equipment, or it's not a business loan to start a business in that sense, or it's not really for commercializing a technology that you've already developed. It's for doing research and development towards a technology. And that's important to understand those eligibility criteria, because you have to be a small business in order to apply. Even with the STTR program, where you're collaborating with a research institution, the small business is always the applicant. There are a lot of great reasons why you might pursue SBIR and STTR funding. It provides seed funding for innovative technology development, and at a really early stage that allows you to de-risk that technology for future investment. There is no repayment required with the SBIR and STTR programs. It's not a loan, so it is non-dilutive capital in your venture. Small businesses do retain the intellectual property rights, and so all data, including proposals and reports, are protected for 20 years, and that's important for small businesses. I know that's why we got into this business, is to protect our intellectual property and to make something from it. Gaining an SBIR or STTR award can provide recognition, verification, and visibility that can then lead to the opportunity to leverage that to attract funding or additional collaborations from other resources, for example, venture capital or strategic partnerships. Receiving an SBIR or STTR award can also make a small business and a technology eligible for a sole source contract with the federal government at the other end of those awards. So that's a really nice additional bonus, which allows for the acquisition of that technology into any of the participating federal agencies as well. The SBIR and STTR programs are generally structured into 3 phases. Phase 1 supports feasibility and proof of concept studies, and those awards, depending on the agency, can range from about 6 months to a year or more. And the amount of those awards range at the different agencies from between $50,000 to $250,000. Phase 2 supports further research and development of the technology, and those awards tend to be for 24 months or more, and they range in amount from $500,000 to $1.5 million. The objective of phase 3 of the SBIR and the STTR programs is to pursue commercialization based on the research and development that was completed in phase 1 and phase 2. So there's no SBIR funding that goes into phase 3, but it is considered as the third part of the process. Again, this slide is a high-level overview, and I will provide the specific details about the NOAA SBIR program in terms of these components later on. So generally, the SBIR and the STTR programs are very similar, except for 3 critical differences. So the STTR program requires a partnership between a small business and a research institution. The SBIR program allows partnering, but it's not required in order to apply. Second, with the SBIR program, the principal investigator on the award must be at least 51% employed by the small business. So that does preclude full-time employment at another organization, for example, a university. With the STTR program, the principal investigator can be employed either by the research institution or the small business. Thirdly, the STTR program requires that 40% of the work be completed by the small business, 30% of the work by the research institution partner, and the remaining percentage by the other, or it can be subcontracted out. With the SBIR program, you can contract up to 33% of phase 1 or up to 50% in phase 2. So in STTR, there are boxes around each of those. With SBIR, there are maximal limits to the amount that you can subcontract out. And lastly, majority VC ownership is allowed by some agencies with the SBIR program. NOAA is not one of those programs, but with the STTR program, there is no majority VC ownership allowed for the applying small businesses. So another set of important differences to pay attention to is the difference between the agencies in what the SBIR program or STTR program can look at those agencies. There is a lot of flexibility in how the programs are administered, so programs can look quite different depending on the agency that is administering them. So first and probably foremost, any SBIR program is going to serve the mission of the agency that it is a part of. And so the type of research topics and the type of research and the categories of research that are covered or supported by the SBIR program need to fit within the mission of that agency. And so looking at an agency's website and learning about what their mission is and how you can connect with that mission and how you might support that mission is a really great way to start to think about what you might propose as part of an SBIR application for a given agency. Additionally, agencies can differ in the number and the timing of the applications or solicitations that come out in a given year. For example, NOAA, we have one solicitation per phase per year, whereas the National Institutes of Health has multiple solicitations throughout the year. Awards can also vary in the type and the amount and the structure. For example, they can be a contract or a grant. The award amounts vary, and then how you move from one phase to the next can vary. Additionally, the topics of interest can look different, so they can be broad. As in with NOAA, one of our areas of interest is climate, and that's pretty broad. Or they can be very specific. We are looking for someone to develop this widget for this machine. Additionally, agencies vary in whether their primary goal is commercialization. There's always a commercialization component of the SBIR program, but some agencies will actually be the ultimate customer for that technology. So there's more of an acquisition focus. So they're looking for small businesses to develop innovative technologies that they then bring into the agency to use to meet the agency mission. And finally, the proposal preparation instructions and the review process is different at all of the agencies. And those are also two very important things to pay attention to if you want to successfully navigate any given SBIR or STTR program. So now Suzi Webster is going to tell you a little bit more about NOAA, and then I'll come back up and tell you specifically about the details of the NOAA SBIR program. Suzi.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about NOAA. So our mission at NOAA can kind of be summed up in 3 words: science, service, stewardship. So what we care about is doing really interesting science to understand and predict changes in weather, climate, oceans, and coasts. Then we want to make sure that that science and that knowledge is shared with society so it can do stuff outside of our agency. And then we also care about conserving and managing coastal resources and ecosystems. So our mission kind of extends from what they say, the surface of the sun to the deepest parts of the ocean. So this is kind of a slide that encapsulates some of the technologies and some of the focus areas that we care about, but I'm going to walk through more specifics. So we divide our mission into 10 different areas roughly. These are the first three. So weather, NOAA has the National Weather Service within our purview. So that's where you get all of your weather information, all of your alerts, that kind of stuff. Also, climate is a huge focus of our organization. So we care about adaptation and mitigation. We make policies and we provide materials that help communities decide how to plan their communities based on the information that we know about climate change. We also care about oceans and coast. So this covers a lot, it's a big area, but it includes shipping channels, ocean commerce, the tsunami warnings, stuff like that. Research is basically just finding new knowledge about all of these other topics. So developing technologies, developing new approaches to research, marine aviation operations. We have a lot of research vessels. We have hurricane hunters that fly into storms and collect data, and other types of research vessels. And then charting for nautical navigation. And then lastly, we have the National Marine Fisheries Service. So that manages sustainable seafood harvest. We have satellites, or NINDS, and that manages US weather satellites and collects environmental data. And it also manages different data sharing agreements between nations. Sanctuaries are kind of like national parks, but for oceans, so they're protected areas. And then education is wrapping all of this up into curriculum and resources for teachers so that more people can learn about oceanic and atmospheric sciences. In addition to our mission spaces, we also have different science and technology focus areas. So right now, the focus areas that we're paying extra attention to are uncrewed systems, cloud strategy, data computing, omics, citizen science, I feel like I forgot something, artificial intelligence. And again, we can kind of summarize, you can summarize our mission up into 4 different goals. So climate adaptation, weather ready nation, healthy oceans, and resilient coastal communities and economies. And this is all important. I want you to know about NOAA because it's important because, like Genevieve said, you want to know about the mission of the agency so that you can kind of figure out if your technology or your idea is a good fit for that particular agency. So Genevieve's going to talk more about our SBIR program specifically.
Thank you, Suzi. All right, so the SBIR program at NOAA is looking for proposals for highly innovative products and services with strong commercial potential that fit in those NOAA mission areas. As you probably noticed, the NOAA mission areas cover a lot of ground, or air and water, not ground really. Because of that, we support a pretty wide array of technologies. So this slide is just showing some images of a number of the different technologies that we have supported with the SBIR program. And these include things like hurricane drones or artificial intelligence technologies to help count and monitor animal populations, or infrared microscopes for observing underwater phenomenon. And so this is just a small sampling of technologies that we support. I'm not highlighting these specific technologies because I'm suggesting these types of ideas to you, but just to demonstrate the wide array of different technology areas and technologies that we have supported in the past. So now I'm going to get into some of the key logistical details of the SBIR program. So for fiscal year 22, we have an estimated budget. Maybe it's not estimated now because we actually have a budget of approximately $11 million, which we administer through a grant mechanism. We have one per phase per year. Historically, our application cycle opens in the fall and our proposals are due in the late winter. And because these are grants, they are publicly available on grants.gov. That's the resource for finding and applying for federal grants. For phase one, we are looking for ideas that are in the feasibility or proof of concept stage. So we really want to start by supporting things at the idea stage. So if you have a technology that's already in development, it's probably not appropriate for phase one of the NOAA SBIR program. Our phase one awards are for 6 months and up to $150,000. And we award about 15 to 30 per year. So our success rate is about 10 to 20%. We had more applications this year than we ever had in history. So it's becoming a little bit more competitive. I think there's a lot of people moving into the climate and the weather space. So it's important to keep that in mind that it is a competitive program. Our phase two competition is a limited competition for our phase one awards only. So you have to be an awardee from the previous phase one cycle to be eligible for our phase two application. Our phase two awards are for up to 24 months and up to $500,000. Because it's a limited competition with just our phase one awardees, we award about 10 to 15 of these awards a year. That success rate is much higher and can be between 50 to 75% of the phase one awards that move into phase two. Again, the goal for phase three is to pursue that commercialization, and that is not supported with SBIR funding. So going into a little bit more detail, looking at our kind of annual timeline. So in the late summer, early fall, September time period, that's when we're thinking about what kind of topic areas, what ideas we might be interested, what are the agency priorities that we want to get some innovative ideas from small businesses in. The solicitation will be released on grants.gov in the fall. The proposals are due in the late winter. And we go through the proposal evaluation in the spring, which is what we're doing right now. Well, not right now, but. And then we make our award selection in early summer with a start date for our awards in early to late summer. I think our targeted date for this year's competition is August 1st for our start date. The phase two program follows a staggered annual schedule that follows after the phase one timeline, and that solicitation is typically released between 30 and 45 days before the end of the phase one award, so that we can start the phase two award as soon as possible after the phase one award. Our phase two awardees do gain access to the NOAA SBIR Commercialization Assistance Program, which is a mentoring and training program that includes a dedicated industry-specific business consultant and supports the development of a strategic action plan, a business plan, and a licensing or go-to-market strategy to support the transition of that SBIR developed technology into the marketplace. I know a lot of our applicants are going to be scientists who maybe don't have that business and marketing experience, and so we do like to provide support for our awardees in that part of the process. So I wanted to bring it back to this slide that I talked about earlier, just to make sure that I reiterate the key details of the program and where NOAA fits in these agency differences. So our agency mission, Suzi went into more detail, but climate, weather, oceans, coasts is how we really cover it. The timing and the number of solicitations, we have 1 solicitation per phase per year. I talked about our award amount and structure, and our award type. We use grants as our funding mechanism. We moved from contracts to grants in 2019, and with that, we've also moved our focus a little bit more towards commercialization, and we have moved our subtopics, our topic areas. We're trying to make those more broad, because what we really want is for innovators out there to bring us their really great ideas. We want to create a space where you are bringing us your ideas to solve problems in the NOAA mission space, and we are supporting you in doing that. We've also increased our focus on commercialization, and we're going to continue to do that by adding some additional commercialization expertise to our review process and to our program office. And in terms of proposal preparation, instructions, and the review process, I'm going to get into the details of that in a minute. So looking at the process of applying for an SBIR grant as a NOAA SBIR grant, as I mentioned, we use grants as our funding mechanism. So our solicitation is posted to grants.gov. You can sign up for our newsletter, and we do notify everyone. As soon as that comes out, that's the best way to learn. If you're interested in our program, that's when you know when the opportunity is available. Sometimes the timeline changes, and so don't rely on it being published in a particular month or something. This is the government after all. So additionally, we added a letter of intent to the application process this year, which is a sort of an abbreviated application. So we can give our applicants an idea of whether or not their technology and their idea might be a fit for NOAA before they go into putting together the 25+ page application. So we want to help make sure that you're not wasting your time. This year's timeline, the letter of intent was due about a month after the solicitation was published. We responded to those letters of intent within an additional month, and then the full application was due about a month and a half after that. After applications are submitted through grants.gov, they initially go through sort of an eligibility check to make sure that they meet the requirements and that they are proposing something that fits within the constraints of the SBIR program. And then they go through full peer review. And I'll talk a little bit more about what is required for the application and what our peer review process looks like. Phase 2 looks similar to phase 1, except it doesn't have the letter of intent, so a much smaller group, and we already know that your idea fits in NOAA because we funded you for phase 1. So, but the rest of the process is quite similar with the initial check and the peer review process. For the letter of intent, we just ask that you provide some small business information and some additional information about the proposed idea, including which topic area you are interested in applying under, and that's directly out of the notice of funding opportunity. We also ask for a project title, a technical abstract that describes the technology and its application in enough detail that we can evaluate whether or not it fits. And then finally, just a brief description of the commercial potential to make sure it fits into that component of the program, which the goal of is commercialization. The application itself has a number of different forms and documents, and we do provide a checklist in the notice of funding opportunity, and I think people miss that because sometimes we're missing forms. So the main body of your application is called the project narrative, and that includes the SBIR cover page, which is just business information, principal investigator information, and checking boxes about eligibility and what your business looks like. The next part of that is the project abstract. The project abstract is posted publicly on SBIR.gov for all SBIR awards. So if you're interested in learning about what kind of ideas are funded anywhere, you can go find those abstracts. And then finally, the technical content, which is sort of the meat and potatoes of the application itself. We also ask that you provide a budget and a budget narrative, and then a number of forms that have letters and numbers that all have important information that the government needs to know in order to give you money, and some additional paperwork. For the technical content, there are a number of categories that we're asking you to provide information in. That includes identification of and significance of the problem or the opportunity, the technical objectives of your project and your work plan. We also ask that applicants describe any related research and development so that we can see that you understand how it fits into the broader research and development picture. We ask for information about the people, as well as the facilities and the equipment available to do the project. Information about subawards, contracts, or consultants. And finally, a description of the commercial potential, a little bit more detailed than what was asked for in the letter of intent. The last 5 bullet points are only applicable to certain people, but we also ask that you discuss if you have any cooperative research and development agreements, guest researcher arrangements, prior phase 2 awards, applications that you have submitted to other agencies that might be similar, and some cost sharing information. I also want to briefly touch on the review process and the criteria for phase 1 and phase 2 applications. Applications at NOAA are reviewed independently by up to 3 reviewers and scored on 5 weighted criteria. And those criteria are the scientific merit and technical approach, commercial potential and application, innovation, the relevance to the NOAA mission, and the team or the research team and the research environment. We make our final award recommendations based on the final scores, as well as taking a look at portfolio balance, diversity across participants, whether it's geographically or by type of institution or by researchers themselves, an applicant's prior award performance, participation and or partnerships with targeted groups, possible duplication of other federally funded research, as well as overall budgets. All right, so now that you have an understanding of the details of the program and the direction that the NOAA SBIR program is going in, I wanted to cover a few basic tips for developing a successful application. So as it was hopefully clear from our review criteria, the 4 key components of your proposal are science, innovation, commercialization, and your team. NOAA is first and foremost a scientific organization, and science is the foundation of the NOAA mission. So it should provide the foundation for an application for the SBIR program that you were to submit to NOAA. A large portion of your score is based on that scientific and technical merit of your proposal. So you want to make sure that you clearly identify the significance of the problem and are detailing the technical objectives of your proposal from a scientific perspective. But also be aware that the reviewers that we invite to review these proposals come from many different backgrounds, so they're not necessarily specific experts in that technology. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding using jargon or any language that would only be understood by someone who was working directly in that field. Another significant portion of the score is the commercial potential of the technology. So we want to make sure that you're demonstrating that you have a clear understanding and a clear description of the market opportunity, the competitive landscape, and the commercial potential of the technology that you're proposing to develop. The third component of your proposal is innovation. So as I said, one of the fundamental goals of the SBIR program is to stimulate technological innovation. So be sure that you're clearly addressing what problem you are solving with this technology, what makes your technology innovative, and what sets you apart from the competition or what might already be available to address that problem or situation. Finally, your team is also an important component of your score. We want to make sure that you have the resources and the scientific and technical expertise necessary to complete the proposed work. So building a team that has all of the necessary expertise from a scientific and technical perspective is really important as well. So moving beyond those key components of your proposal, it's important that you read and follow the instructions. I know that is sort of maybe a silly thing to have to say, but we have to say it. Everything that you need to know about what you have to provide for us and how it needs to be formatted and what it needs to look like is written directly in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. I know it's a long document, but it's all very important. And it's really a bummer when we have people work really hard on these really difficult applications and put so much work in, and then they leave out key components of the application and we're not able to review it from a scientific and technical perspective because we don't have all the information that we need to do so. Please read and follow the instructions. We also recommend getting started early so you make sure to give yourself enough time to develop a strong application. Life happens, things cause delays. Give yourself a buffer in case that you encounter obstacles, because we are not able to accept any late applications or give extensions regardless of the circumstances. And though the deadline may be at 5 p.m., at midnight, the technical support leaves at 5 p.m. on Friday. So if it's 11:50 on Friday when the application is due and you have a problem with the submission platform, unfortunately, there's not anything that we can do about that. I know it stinks, but just like, don't wait till the last minute to try to submit. Finally, especially if you are looking at more than one SBIR program, because some technologies can fit in more than one agency. There's a lot of overlap in agency missions. It's essential to know the details of the specific program that you're applying to. And don't think just because you've submitted a Department of Defense application, for example, that the National Science Foundation application is going to look at all the same in any way. So make sure you're reading the specific instructions for the agency that you are applying for at that time. Ultimately, if you pay attention to the details, you have a stronger application and a better chance of being awarded, and I think that's ultimately your goal. If this is the first you've heard of the SBIR and the STTR programs, SBIR.gov is a great resource to learn a little bit more about the program overall and the agencies that participate. They have a series of tutorials that have 55 different courses about different components of the program that are a really helpful resource for small businesses if you're just learning how to get into this sort of technology commercialization space. They've also put together a great resource to help people find local resources in their community that can support their efforts in developing and applying for SBIR or STTR programs. And I've included a link here on the slide to that. It's sbir.gov/local assistance. SBA, the Small Business Administration, also funds local resources that are specifically dedicated to helping SBIR and STTR applicants through the Federal and State Technology Partnership Program and the Growth Accelerator Fund competition. And those can also be great resources that are specifically developed to support applicants to the SBIR and STTR programs. And also, please feel free to reach out. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So we're happy to answer questions if they come out throughout the process. And more broadly, if you're not applying to NOAA, whatever agency you're applying to, please reach out to program officers, program managers, and talk to them before applying. It just really increases your likelihood of success, not because they're gonna give you favoritism, but it really helps you understand the program and it helps them understand what you're trying to do as well. So now I'm gonna hand it back to Suzi, who's going to give you a little bit more information about how you can stay in touch with us and also how you can learn more about the NOAA SBIR program.
All right, so we have our great website. We just revamped it. So it's techpartnerships.noaa.gov/SBIR. It has a bunch of information about our previous applicants, like titles and abstracts. So you can kind of see like what we funded in the past, what's been successful. We have our technology marketplace. So it shows different SBIR technologies that have come out of the program that are now available on the commercial market, kind of ready to go. We have all of the eligibility requirements that Genevieve talked through, evaluation and selection criteria also that we talked about today, but in a little bit more detail and in the written form for people that prefer that, and all sorts of other stuff too. You can also look for our NOAA Innovator Series. So this is a webinar series that we kind of sponsor, and it features different innovations and innovators that work within NOAA and with NOAA. And this includes SBIR awardees. So these will be sessions that feature technologies, innovators, and we have a whole video archive so you can check out what work has been done, what presentations have been done in the past. And the link is right there, but if you just type in NOAA Innovator Series YouTube, it should come up too. We also have a pretty active Twitter account. It's @NOAA Innovate. So this Twitter account is kind of a combo of the NOAA Technology Partnerships Office program. So that includes our tech transfer program, which is technologies developed within NOAA and private-public partnerships that are doing research, but also, of course, the Small Business Innovation Research Program. So it has all of our updates on when our notice of funding opportunity is published. We feature different awardees and their technologies. We share information from the Small Business Administration, different events that come up, and events like today. And this is kind of like the summary slide of how you can stay connected. So again, our website, techpartnerships.noaa.gov/SBIR. On that website, you can subscribe to our email list, which I think Genevieve mentioned earlier, but that also churns out important information on a not very regular, but when there's crucial moments basis. And then if you want to contact us directly, we have our office email there. And then of course, Genevieve, she's the program manager. So you would direct SBIR questions to Genevieve. So thank you again for joining us today. Thanks for doing this hybrid environment with us. So we're kind of splitting our days, but we're happy to answer some questions now. We'll just need a minute to like churn over the desktop.
Yep. Can you stop share?
Any questions?
And I think we have, so Barbara, do we have questions?
I hope at 30 o'clock is where.
The first question came from Kenesha, and she wanted to know about how this recording of this event will be made available.
Yes, it will be. We'll send it out. It won't be today. It'll probably be tomorrow.
Okay. We had another attendee ask about would you go over the funding requirements that you mentioned in the beginning about research and development? You mentioned it in the first few minutes. I think some people came on late and didn't hear that.
The funding requirements. Like
That these are for businesses and research and development?
Yes, US owned and operated. The work must be done in the US, 500 or fewer employees, and the funding is to support research and development towards the commercialization of a technology. So it's not for purchasing equipment, or it's not like a small business loan, nor is it for efforts to commercialize a technology that already exists.
And Carla has a question. She has previously submitted an application before for funding and did not get it. So do you provide any assistance, either TWU provide assistance or NOAA, to help people write proposals, or what are some tips when it comes to that?
Yeah, so we don't provide assistance to develop proposals. I think those local resources would be a great place to start. They can provide you much more individualized support. Again, the tutorials can be really helpful, and some agencies, so if it was a program not at NOAA, some of the agencies do have what's called a phase 0 program that does provide usually through a contracted organization support in developing the application itself. This is something that we're interested in doing, but we don't have that in place currently.
Okay, that's it on the question so far.
All right.
Is there, can I apply with you and with other places as well?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So you can submit an application, and you can even submit an application for a similar technology to more than one agency at a time. The only requirement, so the federal agency can't fund someone to do the same work twice. So if you accept an award to do that work from one agency, you have to tell the other agency, no, thank you, I've already been supported to do this work. So you can certainly have multiple applications under evaluation at the same time.
Great, thank you.
Any more? Any questions?
Negative.
No? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate that. And again, we will send out the recording.
One last question. What is the name of the organization that helps prepare applications?
They're wanting to know.
So on the SBIR.gov website, under those local resources, they have a list. So you can look up based on what state you're in, or and what, where you live, what resources are available to do that. The Small Business Administration does have 2 programs that specifically fund people to run programs that support that kind of work, and that is the Federal and State Technology Partnership and the Growth Accelerator Fund competition. And the SBIR.gov or the SBA website is the resource where you would go to learn more about those specific programs.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Yeah, and then of course, we could try to help you up here. You could work with our business advisor. They could definitely go over some of the documentation with you to make sure that you are answering the questions. We know from our own grant experience that the success tips that they gave are definitely very encouraged. Take time, read the instructions, and then reach out if you have any questions, right? So, okay, so just thank you guys so much for being here. We just appreciate it so much. Again, this recording will be sent out again, probably tomorrow. So be looking for it in your inbox, and I'll try to see if I could coerce some slides from them to send along with it. So if nobody else has any more questions, thank you for joining our first in-person and online event. So our first hybrid event, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday night for our quarterly special event with Amber Fletcher from Fletcher's Original Corny Dogs, as she's going to do a presentation on a guide to starting a mobile food business. So thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.